Hi and welcome back to Koala's Creep In. I am Koala speaking. In this video, I'm gonna talk about being out as a trans man for 1 year and then some in the spiritual community. And with then some, I mean that I came out around November 2022, and now it's January 2024. Uh, Yeah, it was. I'm gonna start in this end that coming out or not coming out wasn't really a question for me because I, uh, for one, I do things 100%. I realized that when coming out, I had a conversation with my dad, and he was like, "Oh, I don't question you." Because I know that when you say something, then you are 100% sure. And I realized, yeah, because I do, and I realized that that is because I do my most processing internally, and I work on myself a lot before even uttering a word. And childhood trauma. And not being heard and having to be sure of your opinions or your facts or whatever. Uh, so yeah, and I realized how true that was for me when he said that. I was like, yeah, no. When I came out, I was sure, you know. And I wasn't just sure. I was serious. I was like, it's right or die. I can't. I have to. And I knew that coming out to friends and family, I couldn't just do that. I had to do it all the way because I do so many things. Uh, like I have my YouTube channel. I'm visible on Instagram and Facebook, and I do IRL stuff with people I don't know. And I knew that because of my gender dysphoria, I wouldn't be able to it would be harder for me to keep doing what I'm doing if I wasn't out to everyone. And if I wasn't able to say, this is me, and if I wasn't able to have it on my website, and, so that people would have to, it would have to be like the default mode because I knew that for me, needed to be able to stand in my true self authentically and be seen as that, and uh, be able to tell people, no, this is how it is. This is my name. These are my pronouns. Because if I couldn't, and I would still be doing what I'm doing and holding gatherings and stuff, and people would call me by my previous name and my previous pronouns, it would kill me, like from the outside in and the inside out at the same time. So I knew that for my mental health, I would have to do it all the way. When I did it, I had to do it all the way, and I actually reached a point in the summer of 2022. When I reached that point, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to come out, and I have to find a way to live my life authentically, 100%. So uh, that happened during the summer of 2022, and then in the autumn, the early autumn, like just a couple of months later, like maybe, yeah, I came out to my family and closest friends. Um, Started by one-on-one interactions with my closest family and which aren't many these days, and then my closest friends, and then a few months later, I made two YouTube videos, one in English and one in Swedish, and I published that like linked it everywhere. So yeah, that's kind of how I did it. So I'm just gonna start there. That's how I did it. And it's been over a year since then, and I did have like some idea of how it would be to come out. I did because I had been in like groups for trans people for some time. I had discussed this and I had watched YouTube videos with other trans people and tried to learn from those experiences and build a picture of a po- I wanted a positive picture of what it would be like, of course, but also a realistic one. I wanted to know everything. That's how I work. I wanted to know everything before taking the leap myself. I wanted really to know about hate crimes. I wanted to know about uh, people's mental health before and after, about how to um, stick up for myself in situations where people don't respect me or respect my identity. I wanted to know everything because I wanted like yeah, I wanted like all of the ammunition, both like logically, factually, uh, spiritually, uh, and just all of the I wanted really all of the ammunition because I was from like an inner child, the wounded inner child perspective. I thought I was gonna be ridiculed, you know. I was like, okay, this might kill me, but I'm gonna do it. And so I had my full battle suit on, really from the inside out when I came out. And I so far I haven't really needed all of the ammunition. Uh, I give people time, so I think for the people closest to me, spiritual or not, it's it's the hardest because they've known me for years and they have like a picture of me and they have like the habit of calling me a certain name and certain pronouns and yeah, so it's like breaking that habit takes time, and I do my very, very best to stand up for myself in the moment. And in the beginning, I was actually angry when people did it wrong. I was much less uh, graceful about it in the beginning because I was like, I told you this. Why are you messing it up? And then with time, I have also become more humble and I can see which people are not committing and not respecting, and which people are just having a hard time changing their habit. So, and with strangers, like strangers on the internet or IRL or my followers that are like somewhere in between. Some followers are I have I have like a close relationship with or closer relationship with, but as soon as I step outside of my closest family and friends IRL and into like the internet spaces and uh, or like acquaintances and followers and uh, friends of friends and strangers, people are better at respecting my pronouns and my identity, and I think among those people there are like if they either they don't engage at all, because I did lose some followers and some other people in my life and outside of it when I came out, or they are like, sure, sure, okay, him, no problem, so it's actually been quite easier to handle like the community rather than the people closest to me. And yeah, it's been a bit easier because I also can spot more easily which ones are genuine and which ones are not, and it's been like another tool in my toolbox to just weed out the people that I don't want in my life, just as soon as they start take a step towards me. And um so that hasn't been as quite as awful as I imagined so far, knock on wood. um but and now I get to like the overall perspective on trans people in the spiritual community. So my experience as a trans man, has been that first of all, I have exited some spaces that are not for me, like feminine spaces, like women's circles and that sort of stuff. And I think I did a video about women's circles and what I experienced there, because it's weird when I'm in a space or like I'm talking to people that's holding that kind of space, and they're like, "But you're welcome." I'm like, why? Why? I don't want to be welcome into your space, but I would like for you to welcome trans women. And 50-50 they go, or so, uh, and most of the time they're like, is that who I should invite? Yeah, yeah, it is, not me. I don't belong there. Uh, but thank you for wanting to hold that for me, for holding that space for me. But and then so I've exited those spaces and I only enter spaces that are like for everyone. And I'm still looking for spaces for men and trans men. Uh, and I'm actually on the topic. I am actually like starting one, but in August of 2024 in Swedish in the beginning though, to have a conversation. It will be like meetings on Zoom to be in a safe space and talk about the sacred masculine or divine masculine within us and how to view that in opposition to the toxic masculinity in the society and inside ourselves. So I have exited those spaces, the feminine, the women's circles, and I have only entered spaces that I know are welcome to all. And even though I have been very sure of doing that, I have been in circles, in spaces where other people have assumed that it's only a women's space. And when I say, so like I was in one of those spaces recently, and we were going around the circle talking about ourselves, and I was lost. And there were only women except for me. And I was lost, and I was like, and they were like, I noticed that there were like a preconceived notion of the space as a women's space, because people were like saying, "Oh, it's so nice to be in this kind of spaces," and the word women's circle or women's spaces those words were used, and I sat there like, hmm. Okay, but and I was like, did I check with the people doing this? Yeah, they know about me. Yeah, yeah, they know. Yeah, they know. And that was no problem. So I'm where I'm supposed to be, I'm here. And then the word came around to me, and I was like, well, hello, this is me, and I I hope I'm welcome, even though I don't identify as a woman. And there were actually some people closing, like shutting down the cameras because this was on Zoom. And I was like, oh shit. They were not prepared for a man in their space today. They were open wide, open heart, and then they spotted a man, and they were like, they closed the cameras off quickly, and I just kept going, and I think I mentioned something about this being a space for everyone, and I thanked the people that held the space for this space. And then after I have talked, and some cameras were still off, and some people, there were like two women sitting like this, not moving, like almost like the cameras had been like frozen. So after me, the word came around to one of the people holding the space, and they were like, yes, and thank you, and they used my name, and they were like, thank you very much for joining us today, and you are completely right, everyone is welcome here, this is space open for all. Because I think I didn't have a conversation with them afterwards, but I think that they were also uh, a bit taken aback by it being so presumptuously a women's space. And I don't know if they noticed that, because my experience in this last year have been that people don't really notice. They don't really think about how much of a women's space they believe that they are in until it's being questioned. Like when I entered the space and they realized that, oh, this is not a women's circle. uh Even though they know that, even though they might know that, even though they might like talk to me on social media and be like, oh, I heard you were gonna be in this as well, nice, it's gonna be so nice to do this together. And then when we were there in the space, they're like, oh, well, wait, that means that, what does this mean? So that's been an interesting experience. uh and I think that somehow, somewhere, this has been one of my like minor purposes this last year, to make people question themselves in that way. Like, oh, I assumed, why did I assume? And why didn't I check? And why is it even important to me? And that's kind of what I want people to think about. If you are a woman and well, I believe in women's spaces. I really believe in spaces, sacred spaces, especially for women, because that is needed. The sisterhood is needed. Please invite trans women and non-binary, trans feminine people into those spaces, please. But I do believe in those spaces, and what I want people to like realize is that if it's not advertised as a women's space, be aware that there might be people of all identities, gender identities, and walks of life in that space. And remember the word sacred space. Like, sacred space means that it's a sacred space and you are being held, hopefully, uh, and you can be vulnerable to the extent that you are comfortable, of course, but it's supposed to be a welcoming, sacred space, no matter what the gender identities of the people inside of that space are. So, why do you only trust women's spaces? You know, and even more importantly, why do you trust that all spaces or spiritual spaces, sacred spaces, are women's spaces? Why is that something that is just like taken for granted, you know? Um, so, and the last thing I'm gonna talk about, I might do another video on this, or maybe I will do it in like 6 more months. Um, the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that I have this for a moment. No, I actually think I forgot. So I might do like a part two of this when I remember what I was gonna say. So yeah, until next time, walk in beauty and respect people, respect the space you're in, and enter each sacred space with an open heart. And don't close it just because it wasn't fully what you expected it to be. Stay open and explore what that means and why you are there. Because everything happens for a reason. So if you are entering a space with an open heart and the space isn't what you expected, then there might be a challenge or a lesson in there. So just explore it with an open heart and don't shut down and exit it. And yeah, do yourself that favor for your own personal spiritual development. So walk in beauty and have a lovely day, folks. Tjingeling!